Ain't it fun? Ain't it fun? Ain't it fun? Ain't it fun? Living in the real world. Ain't it good? Ain't it good?
Good evening and welcome to the August 20th, 2018 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to invite Economic Development Director Tom Lonigan to lead us in the pledge. If everyone can please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tom. Next item on our agenda is reflection. I'd like to call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We do not have minutes to approve or presentations this evening, so we're going to move right into public comments. This is the time when the mayor and council would like to hear from anyone who'd like to speak on any topic that's not a public hearing topic. Tonight, we do have one public hearing on the strategic development plan for New City Park over by MedImmune. If you're here to speak about that, just hold off. There'll be another opportunity. If you're here to speak about anything else, we'd love to hear from you. We ask that your comments are no more than 3 minutes. You state your name and address or neighborhood for the record. Who'd like to be the first to speak? Do we have any speakers this evening? Going once, going twice. Okay. Then I'd like to invite the Planning Commission up here for our public hearing. And Greg Mann is going to lead us in this discussion. Welcome, Planning Commissioners.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is a joint public hearing on Schematic Development Plan SDP 7974-2018 Discovery Park. The hearing was duly advertised on the July 26th and August 2nd in the Washington Post and posted on the city's website since July 23rd, 2018. At the present time, there are 21 exhibits in the record files. They are referenced in an exhibit list in the file. The individual exhibits may be reviewed during the course of the meeting or in the Planning and Code Administration Office during regular business hours at City Hall or on the city's website. Any objections to the receipt of any exhibit should be noted prior to the closing of the record. Otherwise, they'll be deemed received into evidence. The application requests schematic development plan approval for the development of a city park. The plan proposes a 14.95 acre park with pathways, picnic areas, play structures, and gardens. I'd like to now turn the presentation over to the city's Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture, Director Michelle Pardo.
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and Planning Commissioners. I would like to highlight a few points as part of tonight's presentation. A key strategy of the city's strategic plan is to ensure all communities have accessible, safe, functional, and engaging recreational facilities and amenities. To accomplish this, an objective is to ensure resident proximity to parks with a goal of less than a quarter mile. Adding this park to the city's inventory will assist in accomplishing this goal for nearby residential communities of Quince Orchard Park, Vistas, and Kentlands. With that being said, this park is considered a city park, not a specific or designated neighborhood park. Although the main focus of the park will be passive in nature, there will be additional amenities constructed as part of the improvements. Staff and the architectural team worked on a preliminary concept that was provided at a very well-attended community park informational meeting held at the Quince Orchard Park Clubhouse on March 7th. Based on the feedback received, the conceptual plan was modified to include a gaga ball pit or octagon and a bird's nest swing whereby several children will be able to swing together. In addition, based on previous guidance of the Mayor and City Council, staff continues to incorporate small nature play spaces that will include elements comprised of wood, rope, boulders, and other climbing structures. Lydia Kimball, a Flora teeter, will go into greater depth of all the components and site furnishings in the PowerPoint presentation. I want to assure you that all structures will meet or exceed all current and applicable ASTM, or International Standards Worldwide, and Consumer Product Safety Commission, CPSC guidelines. I will turn the presentation over to Lydia, who will introduce the core project team, including Melanie Brown, the project manager for the city.
Thanks very much. We'll do this from here. I think that's all right. Again, my name's Lydia Kimball. I'm a senior landscape architect with Flora Teeter Landscape Architects in Baltimore, and I have our team here. Billy Swales, who is from Triad Engineering. He's actually the team lead and is in charge of all the civil engineering on the site. And I'm with Emily Lewis, who's also with Flora Teeter Landscape Architects.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. We're delighted to be able to present this project, actually, because it's been great fun to work on, and we've gotten tremendous support from the city of Gaithersburg and all stakeholders, so we're delighted to be here. Billy, do you want to have any? You don't have to. I can just run through the agenda. This is quickly what we're going to show you tonight. You just met us. We'll show you a little bit about the background and analysis. We'll work through the design and then tell you a little bit about next steps. This is our team again. And again, we've been working very closely and directly with both Michelle and Melanie, and they've been great. So these next few slides identify our background information, which you all are probably pretty familiar with. And a little bit about our process for creating the park design, and then we'll end up with a little more detailed look at the design itself, which Emily will go into more detail about. Forgive me if some of this is repetitive, but I just want to make sure we hit all of the high points. This is obviously an aerial of the site in the immediate context. Our site, again, is 14.95 acres total, although that's not all of that is actually part of the developed park area. And as you can see, it's largely wooded. A little bit closer view, you'll see some of the inherent challenges that we had on the site. There's a forest conservation easement, which eats up just under 3 acres, I believe. There's a stream valley along the west side, which is part of the flood zone. We can't develop there. There's steep slopes that are associated with that flood zone and the stream valley and elsewhere on the site, and we're not able to develop that part of the project or the site, leaving our available park site at about 5 acres, and that includes the berm along Orchard Ridge Drive Lane, and that berm is both an asset and a challenge, which we can describe a little bit later in the presentation. There is both vehicular and pedestrian bike circulation around and to the park. While there's no formal parking planned for the site, street parking does allow space for 37 cars. This is considered a small park. It's not a destination, quote-unquote, park, so access will be largely walking and biking by the neighbors. So this slide illustrates some of the plant material on the site, and we've identified that plant material based on sort of the areas of the site. The developable area, for instance, forest conservation, And this existing tree cover gives us clues about what will do well on the site. So we've taken these cues and incorporated many of the existing species into our planting plan. The understory material is largely invasive and shrubby, and this will be removed. There are a handful of mature trees we're happy to say that we're going to try to save. These have been identified on our plans. We haven't been able to get a complete picture of those, the condition of those trees yet, but once the understory is removed, we'll be able to get in there and take a closer look. We're really hoping that they'll be worth saving because first of all, we've planned around them, and the existing trees and existing canopy. Having mature trees on the site is really a wonderful asset, so we're very hopeful. We've gotten great feedback from planning and from the environmental folks in Gaithersburg, so we've been working with them on selecting the right tree species and so on. So this next section of the presentation is going to illustrate and further describe some of the final design layout. We'll show some enlargements of some key areas, some product images, play equipment that we're planning to use, or the types of play equipment we're planning to use. And then we'll show some scaled illustrative sections, which we think are very helpful to understand the adjacencies of the various park elements and the scale of those. Sometimes it's a little easier to get the feel for an area in a section, an illustrative section, rather than just a plan view. So at the beginning of this project, not to repeat the entire process that we went through, but at the beginning of the project we identified an overall goal, which you see in front of you, and then we overlaid some of our initial observations, which included looking at the natural assets and understanding that we had some natural assets, which are great. The existing woodland and the stream, while we're not developing those areas, they really are assets. And those areas will still be available if somebody, I suppose, wants to go climb around and look at the stream. The berm creates a definable separation at the street edge, which is, as I mentioned earlier, is kind of a blessing and a curse in a couple of ways. It does give some very clear separation from the street, which is nice, but it also introduces an accessibility issue, which was a little challenge that we needed to solve. And then there will be a lot of clearing needed to eliminate the invasives and to make room for the park amenity spaces that we wanted to develop. So over the course of several months, we developed a number of preliminary layouts, which were reviewed, as Michelle mentioned, by the COG stakeholder team, the neighborhood. We got some great feedback from the neighborhood, actually, and not actually, it's not a surprise we get great feedback from the neighborhood. They're the ones who are most involved and most vested in having it turn out exactly right. So we work closely with those guys and Michelle's group to select the kinds of play equipment and other amenities that were going to work well within the park. We tried to focus on things that were not necessarily available or featured in other parks in the city, so that this would be a unique element within the city system. And so that's why some of the equipment's been chosen for what it is. And at this point, I'll let Emily jump in and talk about some of the final design elements and walk you through the park itself.
Thank you. Good evening. So during our conversations with Rec and Parks and planning, they emphasized certain important elements for the park, which included picnic areas that had shelter, several small playgrounds, walking path, and butterfly garden. So with the understanding that the park is really intended to be used by the neighborhood, not necessarily as a destination, we strove to balance both active and passive uses and bring in a progression from natural to more formal structure to the park. So the extents of the park are really defined by the forest conservation easement, the existing berm, and then the western slope down into the stream valley. So within those extents, we have the exterior trail, which is approximately 1/3 of a mile. And then I'll walk you through the rest of the elements in the park. So the first of our two playgrounds is on the western the western side of the park. This is designed to accommodate multiple age groups and group as well as individual play, and it includes natural elements such as wood and stone, as Michelle had mentioned. These elements include, as you see on the top left, wooden parkour, which is a kind of a free play element that includes climbing and balancing, natural boulders that can be used by multiple ages, a gaga pit, which is an octagonal shaped structure that allows for group play, a 4-square court, a bird's nest swing that allows multiple children on it at one time, and then we have what we're calling a secret garden, which is a small garden that's kid size with different type plantings that they can touch, they can smell, interact with, that leads to a willow dome. On the eastern side of the park, we have our slightly smaller play area. Includes an expression swing, which can be used by either 2 children or a parent and a child at the same time. A little structure with a slide and climbing element, and then another smaller wooden climbing element that has more balancing and climbing structures along with it. These are sections of those two play areas, so you can kind of see the layout of how they're oriented together. This shows some of our typical trail and picnic areas. We have 5 different picnic structures throughout the park. The trail is, as I mentioned, approximately 1/3 of a mile with shorter trails connecting in between, and we're utilizing flexible pavement in lieu of asphalt or concrete. And will be marked with trail markers along so that as people are walking or jogging, they can see how far they've gone. 2 of our natural elements include the picnic grove and the butterfly haven. The picnic grove is one of our shaded table and structures that's nestled in amongst a natural woodland area. This is utilized to really include the native plants that would be found in this area. The site, as Lydia mentioned, had a lot of invasive plants. We're trying to regenerate the site with the trees and the understory that naturally would have been in this area. And the butterfly haven is a designed garden that's going to include a lot of color, a lot of different plant perennials and shrubs that will attract pollinators. This slide shows some of the different typical park areas that are going to be included within the park. So we have the woodland area that I had mentioned. The woodland area will also back up to the existing woods that are there. We'll supplement some of the plantings in there to help further replace the lost species. Butterfly garden, and then a segment of the park we're going to have in natural meadow, which allows reduction of maintenance, intended to be mowed about twice a year, so there's a lot less use of resources. One of the assets that the berm provides is a really interesting dynamic in elevation, and so to utilize that, we're planting the back side of it with bulb planting. So in the spring, you'll have this swath of color that as a backdrop to the open lawn area shown next to it. The lawn provides a larger passive area for families and small groups to explore. You can see here some of the site amenities that we've chosen. It was really important to the team that we choose materials that were simple and durable and resistant to vandalism, which is why we haven't utilized any wood benches or picnic tables, as those have a tendency to not be used accordingly. There will be a main park entrance sign on the northern end of the park that's a little closer to the existing traffic circle that's there as well. We have several different aspects of signage that we're utilizing. On the top left is the no mow zone sign that's going to go around the limits of the natural meadow to help explain both to the public as to its purpose and use, and to help with park maintenance staff so that they understand where and when that mowing needs to occur. The park information sign will be stationed one at either entrance, showing the location of the path and the different elements throughout the park. We'll have some bike racks at either entrance as well. And then along the back edge of the park, adjacent to the woodland and the forest conservation, with wooden post and board fence to delineate the edge of the formal park from the woodland.
So our next steps are to, after we give you all this presentation, we'll move into the last little bit of construction documents. And at this point, well, when we did the presentation, the anticipated construction start would be winter of 2018. So I'm assuming that that's still correct. And that, I believe, is it.
Thank you very
Questions?
much. Appreciate all the work that you all have put into this, and we're very excited about the project. Questions, comments? Who'd like to go first?
I have
Go
a
ahead.
couple, and hope I. All right, let me just go down my list. I think Michelle said this is a city park and not just a neighborhood park. Just wanted to make that comment. And can you just give us an idea of how many park benches there were? It looked a little light on the drawing, so I was just wondering how many park benches there were.
Yeah, do you remember?
Is there lighting in the park?
There's no lighting.
There's no lighting, okay. And was there ever consideration for like a dog walking area, an enclosed dog area?
There's no enclosed dog walking area, but there are gonna be pet stations, so dogs will be welcome.
I saw that.
But no enclosed dog area.
Okay. And I saw there are 5 picnic structures, right? Yeah.
That's correct.
But do you have a number of the number of benches that there are gonna be?
I believe there are approximately 10 benches
Okay.
throughout. So we tried to have one at least along the exterior of the path, at least every 1/10 of a mile, at least one at each of the play areas, and then one along each of the intermittent paths as well.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Phil.
I have a couple questions. I know you talked at the beginning about there being on-street parking for 37 cars. Approximately where is that located? Because seeing some of the illustrated site plans made it look like the roadways that at least ring the park or border the park. I couldn't tell whether it was one lane in both directions, whether there was parking on the street right adjacent to the park.
Go ahead, no, you.
It's a divided roadway there, and then on the side on the Quince Orchard Park side, we probably haven't heard of you there. There's little pull-off areas that have about 4 or 5 spaces each in those pull-off areas. Probably really hard to see without zooming in on it. There you go.
Are you guys, okay, there you go. Got it.
That one might.
So the parking is on,
There, right in
over,
there.
along
Yeah,
there,
there's,
all the way along that side?
yeah.
Okay, so it's not on the park side, it's on the neighborhood side.
That's
Correct.
correct.
So is that number 37 in addition to the expected capacity that's being used up by the community, or is it 37 count?
37 count on the street.
Okay, so it would be a shared use between the park and the neighborhood?
Yes, yeah, it's not specifically designated for the park, if that's your question.
The other question I had 2 other questions. One is on the flexible paving material you're proposing for the trail. And I'm not sure whether this is a question for you guys or for the city from a maintenance standpoint. That surface is great until you try and plow snow off of it. Is the intent that this is not, plowed or cleared in the winter, that it's just sort of left to its own devices? Or, because if it's going to be plowed, I would assume our friends in Public Works are going to end up replacing that surface, the first winter they take a snowplow or a snowblower across it.
It's true that Are you guys prepared to answer that? I don't want to put you on the spot. We have staff members here.
I'm not prepared to answer that.
Mike, do you want to address that question, or you guys want to get back to us on the?
Yeah, can we get back to you?
Okay.
Unless you want the maintenance strategy is for the park.
Okay. For those, since you weren't on the mic, for those who couldn't hear Michael Johnson, our Public Works Director, their staff is going to get back to us on that question.
And then the only other question or sort of concern I had is I'm not sure. I think the entrance sign is great. It just seems to me like this is sort of a dual entrance park. So having a sign at just one of the two entrances, you know, it makes sense to highlight both of those entrances to me. I mean, but that's just my 2 cents. So
okay.
Yeah, we do have the informational sign at each entrance, and the larger monument sign. You're correct. Is that is that one entrance?
yeah, I mean, I guess my overall concern is that there are a fair number of people who do drive to different city parks, or from outside the neighborhood or coming there. So to the extent we can accommodate that, I mean, obviously, I don't think it makes sense to carve out a section of the site and put a parking lot in. I don't think that serves anybody's needs, but both from a signage and a wayfinding standpoint, the more welcoming we can make it to people who are maybe coming from a different area of the city, I think the better.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, the more populated side actually doesn't have the sign.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, so I was interested in the flexible paving, and I did have a kind of the same question about snow removal and how we would maintain that. But the other question I had is the entire perimeter, the trail is going to be flexible from both entries. And
Well,
around?
the one entrance, the one entrance will be conventional paving down to the loop.
Okay.
Because of the maintenance vehicles driving in on it.
Okay.
So we did want to use a flexible paving with the maintenance vehicles driving over top of it.
Okay. And is that permeable material? Do you know that?
It is.
Okay. And everywhere else, I guess, where there's any hardscape, I assume it'll be a permeable area. And can you give us the approximate dimensions of the Great Lawn, the length and width?
Good question. I'm not sure exactly. Well, we could figure it out by scaling it roughly, but
It looks
we
to
can
be
get back
about
to
100 by
50?
150.
Yeah.
That
She's
sounds
an architect.
pretty close to what we looked at.
It's further than any of us can throw a football. So.
Well, you can throw a frisbee
Width
100 feet. Come on.
Maybe width-wise, yeah.
I can throw a football pretty far. Might be
Oh,
surprised.
Come on.
I put it in the water, I just didn't think anybody would bite. Yeah.
We have no football played by the mayor in the park. So anyway, I think there's some nice amenities here. I have the same issues with parking as well, but I would note that actually Constitution Garden, which is in the middle of the neighborhood in Old Town, has no other on-street parking, yet we have people that drive from all over the state of Maryland and the DC metro area to come see that park. So it's not crowded all the time, but we're getting a new sculpture there soon too, which will probably attract some more people as well. But I think it's important that we acknowledge that particular issue and figure out the best locations for the parking to accommodate that.
Okay, Rob?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. My list is pretty similar to what everyone's been mentioning here. If flexible pavement is what I think it is, it's a delight to run on, but usually you see it on tracks and not throughout the entire park. So I'm curious about upkeep, maintenance, and all that. So I'll be curious to hear from Mike. Parking sufficiency, that side of the street that does have parking, from my own anecdotal experience, is moderately parked. Our space is available, but if folks are not coming from the Kentlands or the surrounding community here and they want to use the park, it might be difficult. So, concern. Question about the upkeep and maintenance of flora. This seems to be a more heavily planted park than what we ordinarily experience here in the city. Did you guys run any projections or numbers on what it's going to take to upkeep those plantings? I mean, the pictures look great, but
we did not, but the more intensive area would be the butterfly haven, and we've selected material at perennials, and those can be cut back once a year. If they're not, it's not the end of the world. I mean, ideally you would, but that is as you suggest, a more labor-intensive area. The meadow area, we were hoping would not be as labor-intensive as other areas could be. Probably mow that, twice a year?
Yeah, the intention for the meadow is actually to be less labor-intensive than mowing just turf grass throughout the rest of the park.
So just let natives grow.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a particular seed mix that includes native perennials and grasses. And then it can be, the intention was for it to be kind of that dual purpose, both to help reduce the maintenance needs of the park and as an educational amenity as well.
Right. And the mowing is to keep the woody stuff down, so you're not getting a ton of trees and shrubs coming up.
The final comment is just throwing out an idea of an off-leash dog run for the Great Lawn. And you've got a berm on one side that makes a natural barrier. I know like the city of Alexandria does an off-leash dog run on their waterside park. It's very well utilized. I don't know if it's something we're considering. Just throw that out there as an idea.
Okay, Luzali?
I have a couple of questions. The first one is, what was the determining factor for the setback that you've chosen? It seems to vary between 80 to 100 feet from the roadways. And so I have mixed feelings about it because it's so separated and secluded from the right-of-way that I have concerns about safety. So I'm wondering what the thought was behind it, if there's a required setback that is drawing that distance.
This is an existing berm? So
Yes, and following the topography, I personally I would have potentially looked at locating your bottom trail on the top of that ridge rather than at the bottom side bed.
I think we had a concern if we locate along the top for accessibility.
I understand that, but I think that you have loop your trail in a way that you could, and you still have substantial space in order to attain that. We have several places in this city where that is attained. Malcolm King Park has a couple of spots that are slopey but are manageable. So I think I feel like a third of a mile it's a good distance, but you could potentially attain a larger distance and achieve less of a I don't know, secluded aspect to the park. My concerns in terms of safety are that it's not going to be invisible from the first tier of the trail. And then I'm a little disappointed that the existing trees were not sampled, and that we're going off of the design based on those assumptions. What happens if we have a lesser inventory? Like, are we going to be bringing other species and planting trees? Have we taken that into consideration
we have an
into the
extensive
budgeting?
plant list. Yeah, we have an extensive plant list and an extensive planting plan.
Okay.
Yeah. There was going to be a lot of new tree planted in this park.
Yeah, I think on this plan, I'm not sure if you can see the mouse as I move it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right here is an existing tree, one, maybe two existing trees actually, and then right here. And these are the ones that when we went out there seemed to be in the best condition and had the best chance of survival. The majority of the trees out there were in poor condition or quite small or invasive species, undesirable species.
And this is probably not a question for you guys, but I think about 2-3 years ago there was a local scientist who did sort of like a survey through this area and found like an incredible infestation of ticks and the diseases and a variety of diseases that these carry. And I wonder if anybody's taking into consideration how this is going to be mitigated, because I personally know several people who have gotten infected from just running in this area.
Any other, go ahead, Mike.
Just a quick question about the pedestrian accessibility. There are 5 crosswalks here leading into the park from the roadway, from Orchard Drive, Orchard Ridge Drive. Are there stop signs along there, or are there going to be crosswalks that are being that'll designate accessibility or enhance the accessibility for pedestrians?
Well, the accessibility into the park at the crosswalk locations is not possible because the berm is too steep and high. So our accessible entrances are where they're shown because we could get the paths to be
So
accessible.
then anybody parking their car, let's say in the middle of Orchard Ridge Drive, will have to cross, then walk around to either side
end.
before entering the park.
Mhm.
And there's no possibility of any kind of pathway into the park from any one of those points? For instance, steps or some kind of a greater accessibility?
Well, when you say accessibility, you mean
Just walking
simply
into the
getting
park.
into the park?
Simply getting to the park, let's say
Okay.
to the Great Lawn.
Okay.
So in order to get to the Great Lawn, you have to actually come in from either end,
Mhm.
but you cannot get in directly across once you park the car.
That's true at the moment, yeah.
You could take a backhoe.
Take a backhoe?
Could have a path over the berm.
And so, okay, that's just, I just want to make sure that we understand that
Yeah,
there's no.
no, we were focused pretty much on accessibility, strict accessibility, so that we wouldn't have to have steps. So if there was a desire to have another access point more associated with the crosswalks, that could probably be added as long as nobody minded that there'd be stairs.
I would make that recommendation if possible, and if it's not,
Mhm.
if it's feasible from an economic perspective as well.
So you would use stairs instead of grade the berm at the point where you could create another entrance along the middle of the berm?
It would take a really long ramp,
What-
yeah.
But I mean, what's the, I was looking at one of the topographic plans in the packet, and it looked like the top of the berm was, plus or minus 8 feet above adjacent grade on either side. Is that about right?
It's
Yeah,
It's at least eight,
At least
yeah.
eight, yeah.
I mean, so a 8-foot wide walking path with a, cut back slope on either side.
That's what I meant.
Wouldn't kill a huge footprint. I mean, it would change the design a little bit, but what, 8 foot wide and what, a 1 to 3 slope up either side?
You're gonna be about 60 feet.
But it'd be 60 feet of sloping, bermed, lawn on either side.
Dirt moves. So basically divide the berm in half. then,
Right.
With a.
Well,
Nice
I mean,
cut through.
as it is now, you have over 100 feet from the closest sidewalk to the access of the park, so it's just relocating that access.
I would just, dirt definitely moves, but but it costs some money, so what I would not want to do, I really like the programming in the park, so, sorry to jump in, and even though I love some of the passive spaces, I think it's a great design. Has a sort of natural curve to it, sits into the natural topography with the outer gate of it. I am a little intimidated by how secluded it is, but I don't know that that's a deal breaker. There's something about having a few secluded parks that's kind of nice. It takes some extra care and attention and some servicing by the city, which is dollars also. But what I wouldn't want to do is spend money moving dirt instead of a butterfly garden or something along those lines. So if it's a trade-off, I'd certainly get it, and I don't think it's a good one. But having a third or centralized entry, and if we back up and look at the aerial a little bit, that's not a major street, the bigger ones at the end, but still it's a pretty good way to enter the park. So if we were going to cut through there and it didn't bust our budget, it's probably a good idea.
Right. On a lighter note, I want to throw out an idea about a very small detail, but since there's going to be so much planting in this park and since it's so nicely naturally landscaped, there was a beloved, you talked earlier about children's secret garden area, there was a beloved hedge at the Washingtonian Rio Center, which of course was private property, so the city really couldn't control what happened to that hedge, and unfortunately got torn down a couple of years ago. That was sort of naturally hollow all along the interior, and kids used to love to kind of run through it. So, just a thought, if there's room for that
It was a
somewhere.
really successful planted architectural element. Created a little almost 250-foot long cave.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it was
I had to crawl through there behind 5 and
children,
6-year-olds too.
Children love, right, children love
I'm
it.
not a 6-year-old
Children
size
love it.
either.
So, there may be other challenges associated with something like that,
Yeah,
but as an
maintenance for
element.
one, but there is a little, the little willow dome that we have is a small version of that. So it's just a dome, it's not a big tunnel. So we appreciate that interesting element that kids love, totally. And this is a smaller, maybe diminished version of that, that's a gesture to that kind of an idea.
Okay, anything else before we go to the public on this? Easy there, Michelle. Easy.
I'm so excited to step up to the podium. I just wanted to address a couple of questions and comments that were made along this way. First of all, the number of benches, originally there were 21 proposed, and we thought that that was too many, so we cut that back to 15.
Oh, 15.
So there's
okay.
15
Okay.
throughout the design.
Okay.
In regards to wayfinding signage, the city does post wayfinding signage, brown signs for parks, green signs for facilities throughout the city. So we will have some wayfinding signs brown for Discovery Park. In regards to the FlexiPave, National Recreation and Parks Association was held in New Orleans last year, and I participated in a 5K while I was down there. And there is a long linear park that is made of FlexiPave. The FlexiPave winds throughout the entire river down there, and there were no issues at all with a FlexiPave.
Doesn't snow much in New Orleans.
And that's true. So Mike can follow up on that part, but it looked great. It felt great in regards to the absorbance. And in our park design, if you'll see, there are a couple of square blocks along the trails, and that will be another harder substance material. So that will allow for the DPW trucks to cross the FlexiPave, their vehicles to maintain the park. In regards to the berm, we did receive a very large DNR grant several years ago. So that berm has newly planted trees all along the top of it that are only a few years old, that were planted by our youth at our youth centers as part of that grant. And the landscape plan, the project team has been working with Andrew Benjamin in Planning and Code, and he's really pleased with the selected trees, shrubs, the ground cover, and the perennial plants that were selected for the plan. So I just wanted to add those comments.
So we're getting rid of all the Atlantis. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing on this topic for this new park. Do we have anybody who'd like to speak on this topic this evening? Come on up. We ask that you state your name and address or neighborhood and keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Janet Levent. I'm a resident in Quince Orchard Park. And I would like to make a comment about the parking situation. And I do realize there are street parking places along Orchard Ridge Drive. But I will say that the parking in that neighborhood is extremely tight. And those spaces are typically used by the residents. So I don't know how much available parking there will be on Quince Orchard Drive for people who are visiting the park, which means they might drive into the neighborhood and use up the very, very tight parking spaces. I live on Elmira Lane, and I can't have family over because there's no place to park. So I just wanted to make that comment. But other than that, we're very pleased that there will be a park. We just are hoping people will walk there and not bring their cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, perhaps you know the answer to this question. MedImmune, adjacent to this property, has its daycare, I forget what they call the facility, and there's parking on that facility. I was wondering when it's not business hours, if they would be allowing the public to use that lot, if you know the answer to that.
So their child care center is called Discovery Meadows.
Right.
And I could make contact with MedImmune to see if they'd be willing to do some type of joint MOU for parking.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any other comments from the public on this topic? Not seeing any. Okay, we have recommendations from staff. Who's running the planning commission? Dan.
Okay. Staff recommends that the planning commission hold our record open till 5 p.m. on Friday, August 31st. That's 11 days. August 31st, 2018, which is 11 days, with an anticipated recommendation on September 5th, 2018. So what's the pleasure of the commission?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and for us, staff recommends that the mayor and council hold their record open until 5 p.m. Monday, September 24th, 2018, with anticipated policy discussion on October 1st. What's the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries 3-0. Thank you all very much.
Okay.
Thank you all very much. As always, you're welcome to stay if you like. Okay. So, next, we have from the mayor and council, and we're going to start with council member Brian Spiegel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening again, everyone. I want to start with a rather important and serious matter. As many of you know, some weeks ago, we asked our staff to develop a draft resolution in response to recent events, reaffirming the city's commitment to diversity, inclusion, freedom, and justice, and denouncing anti-immigrant speech, hate crimes, and harassment. It's actually been a whole year, almost to the day, since our last formal resolution on this issue. So I'm saddened to see that despite the passage of an entire year's worth of time, another resolution is unfortunately very much warranted. Our staff has had a lot on their plate, so it's certainly understandable, but the current draft took a little longer than I had hoped. The city attorney provided us a draft 7 or 8 days ago, and council members have been reviewing and providing proposed edits over email over the last several days. And tonight, I would like to put that resolution forward so that the council may vote to adopt it promptly. It's been almost 2 months since flyers recruiting for the Ku Klux Klan were distributed in parts of our city, more than a month since immigrant rights advocates and dreamers last came to City Hall to testify, and months since young children were torn apart from their parents by federal immigration authorities. In the wake of these and other events that demand a response, including the white nationalist rally in D.C. last weekend, and yet more striking comments from certain federal officials in recent days, we cannot delay in speaking out. Instead, we must appreciate what Dr. King called the fierce urgency of now. And good people cannot allow these incidents and views to be normalized. I regret we do not have the full council present tonight as we consider this important resolution, formally expressing the position of the city. But honestly, I did not know that would be the case when I concluded that we need to move forward with this tonight. Further delay would risk rendering any statement by the city stale, less relevant, and less powerful. Our next council meeting is more than 2 weeks away, and I just don't think we can afford to wait. But I did confer with Councilmember Sales today, and she asked that I convey the following since she was not able to be here tonight. While she supports an introduction regarding this issue, she has not had a chance to review or contribute comment on the draft that's before us. But with that said, I'd respectfully move that the mayor and council adopt a resolution reaffirming the city's commitment to diversity, inclusion, freedom, and justice, and denouncing anti-immigrant speech, hate crimes, and harassment as follows.
Did you want to do the marked up version or the?
This is the.
Oh, that is.
Yeah.
This is the, yeah.
Okay, got it.
Correct.
Whereas the City of Gaithersburg adopted Resolution R-45-17 on August 21st, 2017, affirming the city's commitment to diversity, inclusion, freedom, and justice. And whereas recent events, both nationally and locally, have demonstrated an increase in divisiveness and actions targeting minority and vulnerable populations and communities. And whereas the City of Gaithersburg welcomes all people and recognizes the rights of individuals to live their lives with dignity, free from discrimination based on their faith, race, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, gender preference, disability, or immigration status. And whereas the city of Gaithersburg prides itself on its diversity and inclusiveness and recognizes the importance of the contributions of our diverse population on our social, religious, cultural, and economic lives. And whereas the city of Gaithersburg believes in, lives by, and stands for values of inclusion, equity, fairness, and justice. And we unequivocally condemn Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, sexism, xenophobia, and bigotry of any kind in rhetoric or in action. And whereas the city of Gaithersburg continues to work to ensure our services and programs are accessible and open to all individuals, groups, and organizations, and to build on the atmosphere of trust among city officials and employees and the community that makes Gaithersburg a thriving, welcoming community. And whereas, while speech is protected under the First Amendment of the Constitution, the city of Gaithersburg will condemn words, actions, literature, or gatherings that promote hate, bigotry, and distrust, that diminish individuals or groups or faiths, or that are intended to discriminate, intimidate, or threaten the peace, welfare, and security of our residents and undermine the quality of life in our city. And whereas, while the city of Gaithersburg has no authority to limit the activities of federal, state, or county officers with respect to immigration enforcement within the city's borders, the city supports policies and practices that enhance the safety and security of our residents and neighborhoods, including Gaithersburg Police Department General Order 628.1 that directs that Gaithersburg police officers will not investigate or make an inquiry relative to the immigration status of individuals and will not notify Immigration and Customs Enforcement regarding the immigration status of an individual. And as such, all residents should feel free to contact the Gaithersburg Police Department on any matters of concern. And whereas the city of Gaithersburg wishes to reaffirm its commitment to diversity, inclusion, freedom, and justice, as stated in Resolution R-45-17, state its commitment to community safety and trust, and denounce anti-immigrant speech, hate crimes, and harassment. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg, Maryland, in public meeting assembled, that the city hereby reaffirms its commitment to the values of equity, fairness, inclusion, trust, and justice, and further states that the city of Gaithersburg will continue to provide its services and opportunities to all people, regardless of their faith, race, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, gender preference, disability, or immigration status, and will continue to be an inclusive community where all people are treated with respect. That unless required by federal, state, or local law or judicial decision, no city official or employee will request, investigate, or assist in the investigation of the citizenship or immigration status of any person. That unless required by federal, state, or local law or judicial decision, no member of the Gaithersburg Police Department is authorized to enforce federal immigration laws or inquire about immigration or citizenship status or place of birth of an arrestee or victim of a crime. That no city official or employee acting in their official capacity with the city may coerce a person based upon their actual or perceived citizenship or immigration status, or communicate a threat to deport a person under circumstances that reasonably tend to intimidate or produce a fear that the threat will be carried out. That the city of Gaithersburg will continue to reject bigotry, misogyny, homophobia, racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and xenophobia in any form. And that the city of Gaithersburg will continue to denounce hate speech, hate crimes, and harassment, and will use all means within its authority to respond to and address this conduct.
I think we've all had a chance to edit it. Several of us contributed to this. I think it's a natural evolution and reinforcement of the resolution we passed a year ago in support of the city of Charlottesville and our own position on these issues. And in that spirit and intent, I would second the resolution.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries 3-0.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple other things. First, I want to thank all the communities that hosted National Night Out events. We haven't had a formal council meeting since the National Night Out was organized, and we went to several of the events. I don't know that any of us made it to all of them because I think there were more this year than there have ever been before, but Councilmember Sessman and I think, went to eight of them.
Something like that.
So
yeah.
it was really great to see people out in the community just celebrating their neighborhoods and getting into the spirit of National Night Out. Thanks to all who participated. Thanks to everybody who was involved in the 4-H parade at the county fair. I know it was kind of a rainy afternoon on the day of the parade, but Councilmember Sales and I and our families were able to join Governor Hogan in riding on the city trolley. And it turned out to be a pretty nice event with a pretty nice crowd despite the weather. Thanks to all the folks at 4-H, all the parade fair organizers and volunteers, and our own city staff who certainly play an important role in organizing that. I wanted to wish all of our Muslim brothers and sisters who celebrate Eid al-Adha a meaningful celebration. I believe Eid begins this evening. And I hope to see many of you at the Kentlands Lakelands 5K this coming weekend, and of course also
Next
at the
2
weekends from now. And the
I'm
city
still training.
Right.
Come on.
Okay, I'll give you another
give me
week of
some
training.
time.
No, he doesn't actually.
Right. If I show up this weekend, then I don't have to run in it, right?
Yeah, right.
2 weeks from now, but we don't have another meeting between now and then. So 2 weeks from now, the 5K, and of course the city's Labor Day parade. Look forward to seeing many of you there. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Mike.
Okay, I wasn't able to participate in the fair 4-H parade, but I did see the pictures and it looked like it was great. I haven't missed that one in a long time. I hope you were able to get out and enjoy the fair. It's quite an event. It is the largest agricultural fair, county fair, or sorry, agricultural fair in the Mid-Atlantic, and continues to be. So there's lots of great stuff to do. I was able to attend the annual Pioneer Heritage Luncheon on Thursday, in which the honoree, the historic honoree, which honors the founders of the Fair Board, the Agricultural Fair Board, was the late Harold Morris, former mayor of the city of Gaithersburg, and the Morris family. So they got a salute and a plaque, and the department that was recognized this year was the rabbit department. So good things are happening with rabbits at the fair. You can find out all about it by going to well, getting some information from the Fair Board. Lots of things happening. Summer's almost over. The weather's starting to change a little bit. The days getting shorter. But that also means that people are starting off anew in school. Some of them are starting off in college. So I want to wish good luck, good studying, and a great experience as you embark on your college career, whether it's in a community college, a private or a public college, whether it's local or out of town or out of state. This will be a great experience for you. Tell your parents not to worry too much, you're going to be fine. And then to all of the students of all ages, from kindergarten or preschool to high school, I want to wish you good luck when you start school the day after Labor Day. So it's going to be a good year. Just that's the way you start. So anyway, that's it. Hey, oh, sorry, I have an announcement. After closed executive session, a closed meeting was held at City Hall by the Mayor and City Council on Monday, August 6, 2018 at approximately 9:35 p.m. pursuant to a motion adopted unanimously. The meeting was proposed to be closed pursuant to the General Provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Section 3-305B1I, the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction, and 3-305B8, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. The topics discussed were a personnel matter to conduct the city attorney's annual performance evaluation, and the consideration of a request to participate in an amicus brief in a pending appeal before the Maryland Court of Special Appeals involving an alleged inverse condemnation arising from local government zoning actions. Present at the meeting were Mayor Ashman, council members Harris, Sales, Sesma, Spiegel, and Wu. City staff present were City Manager Tomasello, City Attorney Board, Deputy City Manager Enslinger, and Assistant Attorney Johnson. City Attorney Johnson. Board, Enslinger, and Johnson left at 9:50 p.m. Upon conclusion of discussion, the closed meeting was adjourned at approximately 10:06 p.m.
Thank you, Mike. Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start with my announcement. Announcement. The Mayor and City Council are seeking to fill a vacancy on the Ethics Commission for one full-time member. The Ethics Commission works in conjunction with the City's Department of Legal Services. The Commission oversees the annual review of financial disclosure and conflict of interest forms completed by city officials, employees, and members of the boards and commissions, as well as requests for advisory opinions and complaints of violations of the ethics laws. The board consists of 3 members and 1 alternate who are appointed by the mayor and with the approval of the City Council. Members serve staggered 3-year terms and meet as needed. All applicants must reside within the corporate city limits. Resumes and letters of interest should be submitted via mail to Mayor and City Council, 31 South Summit Avenue, Gaithersburg, Maryland 20877, or email to cityhall@gaithersburgmd.gov. This position will remain open until filled. For more information, visit the city's website or contact City Attorney Lynn Board, 301-258-6310. Right, I mentioned National Night Out. I just wanted to say thank you and congratulations to the various neighborhoods that hosted events. It's always one of the banner events of the year where we get out there and, as it was founded, to take back the night, to advocate for community and for the safety of our communities. So great events. Just wanted to say congratulations to the fair, which was always a highlight for myself and my family. I attended twice, and it was as I always expected. It's a great opportunity to get out there and experience one of the banner events that we hold, not only here in the city, but it draws from the county and from regions far afield. Just wanted to add a little bit of comment on the resolution that this council just passed, just so that we don't let the importance of what was just passed by the council, my colleagues. It is binding upon the city. It's binding upon our employees. And so the expectation of the council, and we know this expectation will be met, is that our employees and ourselves will abide by the terms of the resolution. And this includes the city manager, who would be able to enforce this resolution and the contents of the resolution upon our employees. I don't expect that to ever occur, and knowing the culture of this city, certainly not, but just know that it is out there and it is enforceable. To the young folks, young and old, mostly young, who have come before us and advocated so passionately for these kind of actions, stay engaged, stay involved, and help us understand how we can better assist, advocate for, and conduct outreach to the communities here in the city. We need your support, we need your help in understanding that. So please stay engaged with us. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Rob. I'd like to echo all of those remarks, particularly to our young people who've joined us this evening, and congratulate the council on the resolution that they just passed. I know a lot of thought and passion went into that, and I'd also like to thank staff for their role in creating a first draft from which the council worked. Also want to echo Rob's congratulations to our neighborhoods that participated in National Night Out. I agree with every word. It is a banner night for the city, and just a wonderful opportunity to build communities around town. I'm sorry to have missed the fair entirely this year. I was traveling both weekends and just did not have a chance to make it to the fair, and sorry to miss the parade, but I'm glad we were well represented and I'm sure I'll be back next year. And just wanted to note that last week I had the opportunity to welcome and greet a delegation from the country of Kazakhstan. They were in town with the State Department to learn about how American society is organized. They visited federal government agencies, they visited state government in Annapolis, and they wanted to choose a municipality to learn from about how we operate, how municipalities operate in the country, and so they chose Gaithersburg. We were very honored, and they were particularly interested in human resources, and so our HR team gave them an extensive presentation, and I just happened to be there to greet them, but it was very nice. I will note that we do not have a work session next week, August 27th. The next regular session of the Mayor and Council will be held on Tuesday, September 4th, Tuesday because the Monday is Labor Day. So 7:30 p.m. Tuesday, September 4th here at City Hall. We'll go to from the city manager. And we have our deputy city manager.
Mayor and Council, I just wanted to update you on one item, which was we've been working with several small cell companies regarding their franchise and master license agreement. As you know, both AT&T and Crown Castle have been working with the city over the last couple of months. We've actually made fairly good progress with AT&T and had a pretty good sit-down meeting with them. Crown Castle had to cancel the most recent meeting. We were able to reschedule that today, so we'll have a sit-down with them. In light of that, I wanted to let you know that both AT&T and Crown Castle have requested modifications to the right-of-way regulations, specifically dealing with the equipment size and possible locations. We have asked for specific information from both of those companies so that we can get a better gauge on what they're looking for and what the potential modifications might be. We're still awaiting those responses. As you know, both those items, the franchise agreements and the master license agreements, along with any right-of-way regulation modifications, would come back before the council. We're anticipating that and trying to work with AT&T in their schedule, so we're not sure when that'll come up, but we are working with them diligently to kind of get them going as quickly as they can.
Great. Anything more?
That's it.
Okay. We will move on then to Economic Development Update. Tom Lonergan and Sharon Disk. We have both of you this evening.
We do. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm joined tonight by Sharon Disk from our economic development team. We have a PowerPoint, but don't worry, it's short and hopefully descriptive of the opportunity zones. This is a term that you and many members of the public have heard about. It's a new program. This is not the enterprise zone. Understandably, people conflate the two. They both have relevance here in the city of Gaithersburg. The enterprise zone is something we've had before. We were just redesignated. It's a state program. This is a federal program. It's still kind of a work in progress. We have learned about as much about it as one or two could possibly know, and we're going to do our best to break it down just a little bit for you and the public. The ozone program, it's a financing enhancement tool. It's meant to drive investment into specific areas, and it benefits private investors. What isn't it? It's not a loan or a grant program. It's not a local, state, or tax credit, and it's certainly not forever. It does expire. The enterprise zone is the program that people have heard more about here in Maryland that provides property tax credits, that provides waivers on affordable housing, waivers on impact fees, stuff like this. This is entirely different.
Is the timeline the same?
No.
Okay. I'm sure you're going to get to that. So
I will. The enterprise zone is a 10-year program that we were just renewed for another 10-year period that will expire in 2028. This will get to that deadline. It was created in the Federal Tax Reform Act of 2017. The criteria is defined in the law based on income within census tracts. We could spend all night discussing what that means, but basically the census tracts that were selected to be qualified opportunity zones were not chosen by the city. They were not chosen by the county. These were up to the governor, effectively, and they had to meet certain qualifying criteria. 25% of every state, each state's qualifying census tracts could be included. Ultimately, the IRS did approve all locations this past spring. And in the end, 3 census tracts here in Gaithersburg were determined to be qualified and ultimately approved by Governor Hogan. The key locations within those census tracts include Perry Parkway, the Fairgrounds, Lake Forest Mall, and Old Town. Thank you for breaking this down. The northwest quadrant of South Summit and East Diamond, basically the Diamond Drug Corner going north and west from there. Otherwise, the census tracts in Old Town are not included. This is a map. I hope it makes sense. And I'm going to pass on to Sharon to talk a little bit about the benefits of the program.
The benefits go to investors, and effectively what the program does is it reduces the taxes that investors pay on the gain they make from investments in hard capital. For a long-term gain, the taxpayer would ordinarily pay 15 to 20% on their gain. So there's a potential under this program for a permanent tax exemption for investments held 10 or more years. We'll get into the issue of what the cutoff does to that right now in a slide or two. But the idea is that this is going to encourage investors to move capital to the opportunity zone areas. This is how it works. An investor deposits money into an opportunity fund. For maximum gain, what they're actually depositing is money, capital gains from another investment. And they're deferring the payment of taxes by depositing into an opportunity fund. The fund invests in the opportunity zone project. So no one individual is investing directly into an opportunity zone project. They're investing into a fund. And then the fund has 30 months to improve the property and must invest an amount greater than the purchase price. These are the types of projects that are probably most relevant to our opportunity zones: workforce housing and mixed income housing and commercial real estate. An investor can also invest equity into a business. They can invest in certain types of machinery and equipment, but basically because the program is a benefit of less tax paid on a capital gain, the project has to generate a capital gain.
That is principle. I did want to mention also you could apply it to infrastructure investments as well.
So this is why timing matters. An investor has 180 days to invest their money into the fund. The fund has 30 months to improve the property, and to get the maximum benefit, the fund has to hold that investment for 10 years. And the whole program ends
180 days from when?
From when let's say they're selling real estate, they have a capital gain from that. They have 180 days to invest in that fund to defer the capital gains tax.
Gotcha.
It's similar to a tax-deferred exchange in real estate, only in this case you could actually invest in something other than real estate, but the most likely projects are real estate.
Right.
So right now it's 2018, and you have to hold the property 10 years for maximum benefit, but the program expires in 2026.
So the math doesn't quite add.
Not in 2028. It expires in 2026.
But it can renew.
Actually, there are numerous questions that are still outstanding in how this program is going to be administered. And many accounting firms, law firms, investors, banks have gathered together and posed questions to the IRS seeking additional guidance on the details.
Which they are expected to give in the fall, or as late as early 2019.
Yeah, before the close of 2018 is what Congress was told. We don't have answers to these questions, but the way the law is written, the program and any benefit, meaning tax deferral on the gain, ends in 2026. And there's been a proposal that that language actually be clarified, and if an investment is made before the end of 2026, that should count. But currently, the way I read that law, the way Tom reads the law, the way 46 powerful accounting firms, law firms, and investment banks read that law, there is a conflict here. You can't get to the 10 years the way it's currently written.
Not to get too deep into the weeds here, but for instance, in the enterprise zone, if one were, it's a 10-year program, but if one were to make the investments within the enterprise zone in the 10th month of the 9th year, they would still get the 10-year property tax benefit for that investment. That's not the way this is written here. Everything would be wrapped up by 2026. So things don't quite make sense, and like Sharon said, there's questions that need to be answered.
All right, so we have some sense of what the program might be, but we're not sure.
You've got an overview of what
it might be.
Broad overview of it. Was there anything else?
Yeah, so this does get into the weeds. This is language from a request that one of the consulting firms prepared representing multiple parties asking for clarification. Right now, the way it's written, the only projects we see as likely to happen are those that have already been through permitting and are ready to break ground, or significant building renovations, such as something like the Hilton. However, the investor has to invest in a transaction or fund that related to a transaction for which they do not currently have an interest. So this isn't something where the owner of a property can say, oh, I want to invest $20 million in my property, let me put my capital into an opportunity fund and defer my gain, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't work that way. And the other issue is that these funds do not have to have a geographic connection to the location of the investment. And that was something that Maryland considered when they designated which census tracts to include, because money in Maryland can go into one of these funds and go into projects in California. Same with, California money could come to Maryland, whatever. So it's going to be the communities that have the projects queued to go that can meet that 30-month requirement. The fund must be expending money in a project in 30 months. So it sounded like a really great program. It could turn into a really great program when things are clarified by the IRS, but it is not the same as, say, the enterprise zone where we can actually calculate real benefit.
All right, not great news.
So, well, in terms of our own investment, other than staff time, there's no other cost to the city moving forward with this.
That's right. We didn't have to prepare an application. We don't have to administer any programs. And it's quite possible that after clarification from the IRS that we could see decent capital flow into our opportunity zones. We have some very strong opportunities in those zones.
Right, right. Well, and I think that's the key, is that we're prepared once, if it's clarified in favor of, I guess, really investors.
Yeah.
I mean, even 8 years is considerable savings for these investors, but still they want that fully vested period, so.
Right.
But it hasn't cost us anything yet. So I guess that's the important part, is these efforts aren't draining our treasury somewhere else.
No.
Okay.
So did that slide say the investment has to occur by the end of this year? I thought that's what I...
No.
That's me, not the slide.
We could go back, but the investment did not have to happen.
It was on that last really, really, really long slide.
Ah,
Am I going the wrong way?
Keep
just to the end, very.
Go to,
keep going.
You're going the wrong way.
Yeah. Keep going. There's one more. That one.
All QOT. Oh, the zones must be designated.
Yes.
Got it.
And the IRS did meet that deadline, and all the zones were approved by the IRS I think before the end of June. We did our own reverse calculation, and to get even the modest benefit of 15% off on capital gains tax after 7 years, you'd have to, you got to be doing something in 2019.
Anything else to report here?
Just that the program requires a lot more clarification, and we will bring it back to you.
It may be a totally useless program, so yes.
It may or may not be. The state had put on as helpful a conference as they possibly could on this a few weeks ago, and I think we left with as many questions as we went in with. But we did promise to bring something to you once we learn more about it, and this is as much information as there is about it out there. We're expecting more this fall.
All right.
Do you know how many opportunity zones there are in the state?
149.
So it would be a considerable benefit for the state government, the governor,
Mm-hmm.
legislature, and our elected members of Congress to do something about this.
And the state is also looking at enhancing some of their own internal programs from Department of Housing and Community Development and Maryland Commerce, so that locations within the opportunity zones would possibly get more points when we apply for competitive grants and other matches like that. So there could be benefit to having the designation, even if the direct benefits of the federal program don't apply.
Okay. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we're going to move on to ordinances, resolutions, and regulations, and invite Meredith Strider, our stormwater program manager, to lead us in this discussion.
So I'm going to sit down just because I have a map to share with you all. Good evening, Mayor Ashman and members of the City Council. Before you tonight is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the construction of a stream restoration project near the intersection of Great Seneca Highway and Orchard Ridge Drive. The project consists of 2 sites, which you can see on this site location map. We're calling the Orchard Ridge stream segment and the Lakelands Drive stream segment. And both of these are tributaries of the Muddy Branch River. And both projects will stabilize and restore the existing stream channel to preserve habitat and prevent future erosion down the line as well. The Lakeland site over on the right-hand side also includes the installation of an in-stream concrete structure to attenuate the flow from larger storm events and prevent downstream erosion from occurring because there's a bit of a drop in grade, about 10 to 15 feet from the one side of that drop structure location to the other side. So just a little background information on the solicitation. On April 4th, RFB number 2018-22 was issued, and we received 8 bids. The low bidder was Stormwater Maintenance and Consulting LLC with a bid of $1,056,479.30. And staff does recommend awarding the contract to the low bidder in the amount of $1,056,000 and $56,480. We're just going to round up that change there for you. Also included, we have outreach signage that we are including. We'll have signage printed for both project sites, and that's to help us promote the efforts that we're taking to improve water quality in the city. The FY19 stormwater budget includes $1,020,000 for the construction of the project, which is a little bit more, the project ended up coming in a little bit higher than what we had budgeted, but we do have available unallocated funds that we will be able to allocate to this project. So we do have the funding available in the budget. So if you have any questions about the project, I would be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Meredith. First off, I want to congratulate you and everybody else involved in what seems to be a very successful procurement. Look, I mean, we have 8 bidders in an enormous spread, and the low bidder was responsive and all good. I guess my question is, has to do with our MS. Every time you're going to come to me about
sure,
a capital
sure,
improvement,
sure.
I'm going to ask you about how this
Of
fits
course.
into MS4 and our responsibilities.
Yes. So this is, stream restoration projects are one of, many possible BMPs that we can install to reach our MS4 permit goals. And we decided to kind of get started with a suite of stream restoration projects. And each of these projects will provide us with credit towards our MS4 permit. So
Excellent.
you could rest assured that, yes, this is part of our
That's the important part.
mission
It is very important.
for compliance.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Further questions and comments?
So when would the work begin, and when would you expect it would be complete?
So we're looking at probably October or November for beginning the work. We'll talk with the contractor and set up the notice to proceed and everything like that. And we're looking at wrapping up probably by the end of February or so, because there's a stream cutoff window where you cannot do any construction in the streams in the state, and that happens in the springtime in Maryland. So we're confident that our project schedule will ensure that we can finish the
Are
project
there
on time.
consequences for the contractor of not completing the work by that date?
They would just have to, what they would have to do is basically
Suspend.
stabilize the project and, demobilize and get out for that period, and then we would have to remobilize. But we don't anticipate that being an issue here.
So the work closest to Metamune would not have any, would not be affected by any construction once we begin Discovery Park?
No, we should be out of there beforehand, and then it'll just be a much nicer stream amenity that'll be enjoyed as part of that park. And you can see up here at the top, the Metamune site, the Orchard Ridge site that we're talking about. We will actually be using the construction entrance that already exists for the Metamune childcare site. And we've executed an agreement that will allow us to use that entrance for access to the project site.
Okay, great.
Any tree loss or plantings going to occur?
Yeah, so part of the reason we're taking that route is because the part of the property that we actually own is in a forest conservation easement, and we didn't want to lose those trees, which is why we developed the agreement with Metamune. Some trees are going to need to be taken out, but we hold ourselves to a one-to-one replacement, so anything that's lost will be replaced. And again, we work with our forestry department to make sure we're choosing appropriate trees for the site location.
Right.
I just want to say I'm a fan of the signage. I don't know if that's the final design for the sign, but I thought it was just a nice, succinct way to communicate to the public, that what the stormwater fund is for.
Right.
This is the kind of stuff it's for, because they get that bill and some of them scratch their heads, and we try to do outreach, but this is probably one of the best ways to educate the public about what this fund is for and what we're doing with it as they walk by and see the project, happening. And so I thought it was a cool sign.
Great. Yeah, if you have any feedback about the signage, any other information you'd like to see, please let us know. This is just a draft, and we will update it with any other feedback you might have before we get it printed.
Move the resolution.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 3-0. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Nice
Next, we have, what do we have here? The water slide replacement. Sunil, I'm going to try to say the name. Prefaraj.
Yes.
Right?
Get it right. Good evening, Mayor and Council members.
Good evening.
This is a resolution for the Mayor and Council authorizing City Manager to enter into a contract for a water slide replacement. The existing slide is original to water park construction, which was built in 1991. These slides are typically designed to last 20 years, so we exceeded its useful life. Currently, the slide and its structure shows significant extensive deterioration. The flumes are generally made of fiberglass that shows extensive wear, and it's requiring annual extensive maintenance. So the structure itself needs a repair, painting, the flume needs to be resurfaced. So we are to a point, the maintenance cost of this slide is significant. We also need to maintain to a certain standard to meet both state and county inspection requirements. So in order to provide a safe and reliable water slide, with the improved rider experience, the technology has changed significantly since 1991, how these slides and the designs are done today, and also reduce the maintenance cost, annual maintenance cost. We are proposing to replace the slide in its entirety, which includes the support structure, footers, stage structure, flumes. We have 2 flumes, and also associated structures for the flumes itself, motors, pumps, controllers, and all safety shut-off valves. So the new slide also we are proposing to incorporate 2 translucent bands, so which is a very exciting feature on most of the new slides today. There are sections of the flume itself, they are translucent, so when the people are sliding, you can see from underneath.
Cool.
So we're proposing that as well. Wow. As part of the new slide replacement, we're also proposing or significantly or extensively use a composite material where we don't require to go and paint annually. And also they are more durable compared to other natural materials in specific application right here. We opted to use a design-build project delivery method because it's a very specialized project. A regular general contractor cannot do this kind of project, so it has to be something very specific to slide builders or pool builders. So that's the reason why we choose design-build delivery method. So we issued a request for proposal on May of 2019. So we received 2 proposals from 2 contractors. So when we asked for an RFP, we specifically asked for a proposal to submit 2 slide different heights. One is 38 feet high, which matches the current existing slide. Another one, we asked the proposer to choose a slide height between 30 and 37 feet high. So both proposers, they have submitted cost for different heights. As you can see, the cost difference between a 37 or 38 feet high and a 32 feet high is not significant. The difference is only about $73,000 on the lowest proposer. So based on the cost variation for 2 different heights and also the design options that's available for the taller slide and the added experience and the ridership experience that provides a taller slide, we are proposing to go with 38 feet slide. So based on the proposer's relative experience, the lowest proposer does have a relative experience in building slides or erecting slides. The second proposer doesn't have any experience directly, but he was using sub-consultants to do the work. And we strongly felt the lowest proposer is most qualified to do this work. So the cost of the design and build is $1,093,326, which also includes 2 years maintenance, which also validate 2-year warranty that we are asking for in the proposal. So based on our city's estimate for this project is $1.2 million. So we believe the best approach for the city and the best value for the city is to go with the taller slide. So we are asking mayor and council to approve to go with the taller slide.
Thank you, Sunil. And that all makes sense to me. A couple questions. I'm assuming that we get 2 bidders in this case because there are very few companies that do this sort of construction.
Turns out there's really only one.
Right. and my understanding is that we've worked with Paddock before.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I got.
In what capacity, just for those of us that aren't in the know?
What do they do?
The Paddock pool,
Michelle might be able to answer. If you go ahead,
sure. Yeah. They have actually renovated our entire pool several years ago. Our water park, they renovated. They also were part of the renovations of indoor pool that we have. And they provide our maintenance for our slides, existing slides. So they provide other repairs for the pool-related services. Because they're local, they're located right here in Rockville. And most of the other pool manufacturers, they seems to be outside country. They're from Canada or Mexico or different places. But the one that the lowest proposer proposed, that slide manufacturer is from Ohio. So in near future, if we need anything, any parts that needs to be repaired, we can all easily get these parts from local Ohio manufacturer.
I have a question. it wasn't entirely clear to me. I think it was implied, but if we were to go with the taller slide, would it be essentially the same slide path and curvature that we see now, or would it be something totally different?
It'll be totally different.
Okay.
If you look at the length of the flume itself, there's a rendition. That's right there.
There. Okay.
We are changing how the stairwell itself integrate to the new slides, because currently our stairwell interlays with the slide, so it makes it very challenging for us to do any kind of services or maintenance. So we're kind of isolating the stairwell from the slide itself, and we're also including the radius of the slide loops itself. So it'll be a faster and better slides than what we have right now. So the rendition right now is a preliminary rendition. So as we progress with the design, we will refine the design, considering the line of sight, the safety, and other things. We will make it better with the design. So that's our approach.
How much will the footprint change?
The footprint does not change, because we have limitations of the existing splash pool where it comes in. So we cannot extend the footprint considering where we are right now, existing slide. So
but
it matches very
closely.
Staircase
will
be on the side, which we have a space for it, but it'll be within the fenced area.
Okay, and accessibility to the site is not a problem?
It is not a problem. Actually, part of this project, we are providing a concrete path from the existing deck to the slide, which we don't have right now. That is something we are, as part of the improvement, we are adding a concrete pathway to the slide.
Okay. So much like the second bidder, I don't have any experience with building slides. So, I mean, do we do peer review? How do we make sure that the slide, the slide works and we're not having people slide off of the slide prematurely?
No, that's actually part of the design. It's part of what we have right now proposed in this one is a rendition. So these people are contractually and legally obligated to provide a slide, and we also go through several reviews and the review commitment, and we have permits that needs to be get from both state and from the county. So there is a review, another stage of review is incorporated in that.
Okay, so these various steps are checking to make sure this design is being reviewed to make sure people.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
But it's a completely enclosed slide, right?
We have two slides. One is an open slide, another one is a completely enclosed. So we have two flumes from the structure.
That's not different from what we have now.
Yeah.
We have an open slide.
Yeah, there are different bands. The radius is different. How they come back and integrate into that is different.
Someone want to move the resolution?
I'll move the resolution.
Well, which one? Which one?
I'll move the resolution to contract with, is it Paddock?
For option, for the taller option.
Option 1 and Paddock.
Second. I like option.
Option 1, yeah.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 3-0. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Nice.
Next we have policy discussions. Let's see. Lynn.
Yep.
Take it away.
We have the next 3 items all concern the city election process, and I'm going to talk about them in general, but then obviously we need to do separate motions for each. Following the 2017 election, the city's Board of Supervisors of Elections looked at our election process and made some recommendations to the council. All of the proposed charter amendments, code amendments, and regulations were introduced by the council on June 18th of 2018. Notice of the public hearing was published on June 20th, and then a public hearing was held on July 16th, 2018. So all 3 matters are ready for adoption this evening. There were 5 primary goals of the proposed changes that are before you this evening. The first was to extend the election cycle. So we are changing the city's election cycle from a 45-day cycle to a 75-day cycle. And we've also extended the period of time when absentee ballots would be available from 30 days to 60 days. We've added a new recount provision. We've implemented same-day voter, same-day voter registration. And then we've done a number of clarifications in the code. Some is just to clean up language, but we've also deleted the references to slates and then added regulations dealing with joint campaign activities. And finally, we're proposing regulations. We've taken the existing, what were election guidelines, and proposed that those be changed to regulations. So first I'm going to deal with the charter changes. We're proposing 4 charter changes. First is section 27. which deals with the qualification of voters, and this is where we've added the same-day voter registration provisions. Section 29 is where we've extended the election cycle from 40 days to 75 days. Section 29A is really just a cleanup provision where we've corrected the reference to another section of the charter. And then in Section 33 deals with the counting votes and runoff elections, and this changes the time for certification of the election process from 48 hours to 7 days. So I'm going to stop there, so if, and then we'll go into the code changes next.
Okay, this is policy discussion, and if I were voting on it, I would support it. Please feel free to discuss the policy.
I don't think we need to beat a dead horse since we've been talking about this for a while, and in our public hearings, we all seem to have some good consensus. I'm excited to see the charter change to Section 27 for same-day voter registration. It's been a long time coming. I don't know if anybody has anything else they want to add. Otherwise, I would move that.
I'll second that one.
Which, the Section
27.
27.
Charter amendment to Section 27.
Yep.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Rob, you said aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye, aye.
Just want to make sure.
Aye, aye.
3-0. Okay. Next, we will move on to the Chapter 6C, right?
No, we have to do
I'll move
each of these individually.
I'll move
Oh,
to
we have to
Section
do-
29.
Second.
Oh, okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Carries 3-0.
Move the Section 29A resolution.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 3-0.
Move the Section 33 resolution.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries 3-0. All right.
All right, next we have changes to the city code, and luckily you can do this one all in one motion because
Thank
they all,
you.
they all
There's
come
a
under
million of
Chapter 6C1.
Mostly cleanup.
So yeah, most of this is cleanup. We've added some definitions for clarity purposes. We have, because we are extending the period of time for the election, we've changed some of the campaign finance report due dates to coincide with the longer period of time. We've removed the reference to slates, which I mentioned earlier, and we've modified some of the penalties to give the Board of Supervisors of Elections a little bit more authority, but also leeway in enforcing the provisions. I do want to bring your attention specifically to Section 6C22, which is the absentee ballot provision. As the council introduced this, it does allow absentee ballots to be postmarked the day of the election, but received within 5 days of the election. We did have quite a bit of discussion about this particular provision. Certainly the Board of Supervisors of Elections has recommended that ballots all be received by the close of the polls on election day. And staff noted that the 5 days is a little bit of a problem because that would hit on a Sunday. So I think staff's recommendation is it being no longer than 3 days.
And we have to certify within 7 days.
We have to certify within 7 days. Otherwise, we did also add the recount provisions that we talked about earlier as well.
Okay.
So you're recommending doing an amendment to 6C22 as
22, yes.
To business, the close of business 3 calendar days after the election.
Well, staff would say that would be the, should be the
max.
longest period of time. Certainly the Board of Supervisors of Elections recommended that it be day of. We did in a memo provide some information from other jurisdictions, similar jurisdictions. Most of them it did have the day of or the day after for actual receipt.
So, again, if I were voting here, I would go with the Board of Supervisors of Elections recommendation, but it's up to you guys.
My preference is to keep it fairly minimal. I mean, while still balancing the desire to count as many, valid votes as we can. We had this discussion the last hearing. I don't feel so strongly that it needs to absolutely be day of only, but I wouldn't want to go much farther past that. I certainly wouldn't want to go past 3 days.
Right.
I might be okay with like a compromise of 2 days or something like that, but.
I agree, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, given the fact that the County Board of Elections received some ballots that should have come to us and took more than 24 hours to get them to us, I think that's probably plausible that that might happen again. So I would be in favor of 24 to 48 hours. I guess we need to agree on what that figure would be. But
Rob, where are you?
Yeah, allowing absentee ballots to be counted that are postmarked day of election and received afterwards enfranchises voters. I know it's probably enfranchising the procrastinating voters, but it's still enfranchising.
Yes.
You know, if staff is recommending, knowing that the Board of Supervisor Elections is advocating same day, you know, 2 days is fine by me.
Okay.
So we have consensus on 48
48
hours?
hours?
Yeah.
So
Can the board live with that? Whether they like it or not, I just want to know if they can live with
Bill,
it.
if you want to come to the mic, if you want to say something, please
the
come on to the mic.
implications are that the certification could not happen until the following Thursday.
And we heard in prior presentations how many of these ballots there were in the past that were not counted, right? It was not a huge number, right?
Yeah, and it was 7 in the 2017 election. 7 that were rejected.
I mean, I won't restate what you guys already know. My position is I think the one thing that you do need to focus on is a certainty of the election. I mean, it certainly creates a lot more headaches for us on the night of the election. You know, the press is interested who's the winner. Okay, the number of votes, the vote margins are going to be small because we only have 9% of people voting. So you're definitely creating uncertainty if you're going to extend it beyond the night of the election, because people are going to say, well, what's going on? You know, all these mysterious ballots are coming in. Again, you're dealing, I don't think, Rob, you were here, you get ballots that don't have postmarks on them, or they're smudged, or you can't make a determination as to whether it's a valid absentee ballot. I do hear you when you say, you know, we dealt with ballots that were going to the wrong location, but things are always going to happen in elections. And so I think from the board's position, we really do like certainty. We want to know what to count and what not to. And it creates a lot more ambiguity for us. And so it's going to make our job a lot harder. And we won't be able to tell you on the night of the election who won the election, potentially. Okay, so, I mean, that's the dilemma.
You could say the same thing about provisional and absentee ballots that aren't all counted on the night of the election, right?
I'm sorry?
Provisional ballots aren't necessarily counted. Those aren't, the count of the provisional ballots isn't necessarily completed.
Right,
on
we
the
have to
night
make
of
a
the
determination regarding whether they're
I think adding 24, 48 hours doesn't, I mean, that gives you the uncertainty of when you're going to stop accepting ballots. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, this adds a timing element to it. What you had mentioned as far as the no postmarks and smudging, BOS is empowered to adjudicate those. It's just the question of when the cutoff is for them to receive things that they're going to adjudicate.
Correct.
Okay. Anyway,
thank you, Bill. I appreciate it.
We hear you.
Put my 2 cents in.
We hear you. We're just trying to balance all the interests here.
A Lynn question, is the intent still to release preliminary numbers night of, and then subject to the counting of, like they do in other elections? You always...
Yeah, we would release unofficial results the night of the election, and then when the board certifies, we would deal with the provisional ballots, and if there were any subsequent absentee ballots that would be counted.
Would we know on the night of the election how many absentee ballots are potentially come in? I mean, we know how many have been requested, right?
Yeah, I mean,
if 500 had been requested and 400 came in on the night of the election, we have no idea if one ballot or another 100 ballots is going to come in the next 2 days,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, typically we don't receive back 100% of the
Sure.
applications or the ballots that we sent out.
Sure.
So there will be some number that are just not received back.
Okay. So that does inject uncertainty, but it injects it only for 2 days.
I'm comfortable with it. It enfranchises voters again.
Mike? Still comfortable with 48 hours?
Comfortable with 48 hours.
Right.
I can live with it. Yeah.
All right, well then does someone need to make a motion to amend?
Is it
Yes.
48 hours or is it 2 days? How is
It
it
would be
stated?
2 days from the
2
close
days.
of polls.
So
Yeah.
do we to move the resolution second and then amend it, or move it as amended?
You can move it as amended.
Okay. I'll move the resolution as amended in section 6C-22 to read before the close of business 2 calendar days after the election.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries 3-0.
Okay, and then the last action is the regulations. Again, we took the, what has historically been the campaign guidelines, turned those into regulations. We did add new provisions. I mean, we beefed up some of the provisions, particularly with debates. We added some clarity there, but we did add new provisions on joint campaign activities to clarify the slate issue.
I think we discussed this one pretty much
Yeah.
completely. I will move
Resolution.
adoption of the regulations.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries 3-0. Thank you very much. Lynn, do you have anything else from the city attorney?
Just very briefly, I think that I did send out to you about 2 weeks ago a recent FCC action imposing some regulations dealing with the small cell issue in general. We did not believe that those regulations necessarily had a lot of impact on the city's current actions. We are looking, the Smart Cities Coalition is looking at possibly a motion to reconsider and an appeal of that order. Not necessarily because of the concern with that particular order, but sort of the precedent sets for other actions that the FCC has taken. But there will be more information on that. I think we have until September 4th to make the decision whether we will participate in that action or not.
Thank you for that. Anything from any other staff? Not seeing any. Lauren, you sure? Just checking, just checking. Okay, as I mentioned, we do not have a work session next week. The next meeting of the Mayor and Council will be on Tuesday, September 4th. We hope to see everyone out at the Kentlands Lakelands 5K. We hope to see everyone at the Labor Day Parade on Monday, September 3rd. It's going to be great as usual. So until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.